and welcome to Bloomberg Quint. We've got the first advanced estimates for GDP for the year FY22. The estimate at 9.2% in terms of real GDP growth is more or less in line with what the RBI had anticipated, slightly lower. 9.5% was the RBI's estimate. In nominal GDP terms, growth is estimated at 17.6%. That is stronger than the 14.4% that the government had budgeted for when they presented last year's budget. Remember, one of the reasons this number is important is because it forms the base for the budget exercise. Joining us to help us analyze these numbers, Aditi Nayyar, Chief Economist at ICRA, Madan Sabnowitz, Chief Economist at Bank of Baroda. Thank you both so much for taking the time to speak to us. Aditi, I'll start with you. What's the key takeaway from the headline numbers?
The three headline numbers that we really watch out for are broadly in line with our estimate. We had a real GDP forecast of 9%, so the NSO's number is a little higher. Our real GDP forecast was 8.8%, so that at 8.6% on the other hand is a little lower. And our nominal GDP forecast was 17.5%, which is pretty much in line. The sense I have is that while of course the impact of Omicron is unfolding right now, but possibly the advanced estimate has not really been able to fully factor that in. We, the sense we have is that after a 6 to 6.5% GDP growth in Q3, we're probably clearly looking at a sub 5% number for Q4. And that is something that I'm not sure has been fully factored into these numbers. One real surprise in the disaggregated numbers is that the construction GDP is actually projected to contract for the entire second half of FY22, which I'm a little surprised by. On the other hand, the mining number is a double-digit growth, which I think is a little too high. So in terms of the disaggregated numbers, these are the two that really stood out that were very different from our internal forecast.
Okay, and I'll get to that in a bit more detail later. Madan, your first thoughts both on the real GDP number and also nominal, which will be important as the budget rolls around?
I think the real GDP growth forecast of ours was 9.3%, so we're talking of 9.2%, which the CSO has come up with. And I feel that even in case Omicron effect comes into effect in the fourth quarter, which is very much likely, we are looking at maybe a 10 to 20 basis points GDP growth being shaved off. So we'll still be probably just slightly above 9%. Now, what does this really mean? This really means that we are slightly above the level of 1920. So maybe all the losses which were incurred in 2021 on account of the pandemic have been wiped out. And we're actually starting on a clean slate for the next year, hopefully in case there's no fourth wave and fifth wave. Now, in terms of GDP in nominal terms, I think this has, of course, been a blessing for the government because you suddenly have a higher base to play around with. And this particular number itself will help to temper the fiscal deficit ratio because we were looking at a ratio in the region of 7.3, 7.5%. Now, we haven't quite worked out as to what this number will be, but definitely on account of a higher denominator, things will look better. And also the government will have an advantage that whatever growth rate it forecasts next year, normally in the region of around, say, 13 or 14%, will be on this higher base. So therefore, you will have a larger fiscal deficit number to maneuver with.
Aditi, as you were saying, obviously, this gives us a sense of what second half growth is going to look like. But if one strips out the base effect that was there in the first two quarters and, the slightly normalizing base in the coming quarters, what can we gauge about the underlying momentum of activity? I think the RBI in its latest report had indicated that there is some flattening of momentum that they are expecting or seeing already in the second half of the year, irrespective of Omicron.
After October, I think I sort of, even as November was progressing, I sort of started to lose hope that what we saw in October was going to be durable. A lot of the November indicators significantly flattened on a YOY basis as compared to what we had in October. Partly because, there was a slack after the festive season, but also because very heavy rainfall in the south did create supply chain disruption. In December, we did see a rebound in many of the high frequency indicators, but most of them didn't get back to the October levels. And anyways, the uncertainty started, and even though vaccination coverage is reasonable at this point in time, but contact intensive services are definitely going to take a hit in this quarter. And we're waiting to see what happens in terms of the widening of restrictions. What is warranted? I at this point certainly believe that we're going to get we're in the third wave. Numbers are going up very significantly in the metros. But what's going to matter more is the hospitalization. Over the next few days, if we don't see a big pickup in hospitalizations, perhaps then we can get away with milder restrictions. But the numbers are possibly going to be pretty large this time. So even if the rate of hospitalization is lower than what it was in the second wave. We need to see what the math works out in terms of what kind of restrictions are warranted to deal with this unfolding situation. So clearly, the recovery has been interrupted. All of the MPCs search for a durable or a broad-based recovery. I think all that's been set aside, and February policy normalization commencement is just out of the question at this point in time.
Madan, recovery interrupted, that's well, appropriate way to describe it, perhaps?
No, absolutely, because I think the RBI has always been harping on the fact that the growth doesn't look durable enough. It's not very confident about the growth process. In fact, the forecast has remained 9.5%, even while the government was talking of something like 10.5 to 11%. So this number of 9.2% clearly means that without the COVID impact, definitely means that it's a downward bias. And therefore, the RBI would take the stance that we need to be more accommodative for some more time, which means that we don't have to increase rates. And even the liquidity situation which is there right now will be allowed to continue to prevail the way in which it is, because they'll have to provide support. I think that's the stance which the MPC and the RBI have taken, that they'll do everything to support growth. And therefore, no change in the policy stance, unless we get a very ugly inflation number, which I'm not expecting. But if we get something like 8 to 9%, not expected. But then, of course, the RBI will have to rethink on inflation. But as of now, it looks like even a 5.5% inflation number is not something which is going to disturb the RBI's thinking.
Aditi, just coming to the fine print of the numbers, so I'll start with the expenditure side. What is the consumption growth number indicating to you? I think even in terms of share of GDP at current prices, consumption between FY20, FY21 and FY22 has consistently now dropped.
So, what I recall from the numbers for H2 of FY22, we've got a projection of about 2 or 3% growth in the private final consumption expenditure. So pretty low. This is H2 over last year's H2.
Yeah.
For the gross fixed capital formation, we have a number between 6 and 7%, which is, well, it's okay. I mean, it's not very high. Let's see if it's achievable. If it is, it's going to definitely, get a boost from the state and central government capital expenditure. I mean, I don't think that with the ongoing uncertainty, we're going to see the private sector commencing a lot of, capacity utilization, expansion plans at this point in time. All of that's going to get delayed a little bit. What really surprised me was the government final consumption expenditure, where we got some 13% growth being projected in H2 over last year's H2. Last year's H2 was already a very high base. In fact, the split that we had last year in terms of H1 and H2 for Government of India was extremely skewed. We do believe that even this year, a lot of consumption expenditure of the government, overall expenditure of Government of India is going to be back-ended. But it's similar to what we saw last year. So a double-digit growth is something that's looking very unlikely.
Okay. So that's something that could get adjusted. Madan, you want to weigh in on the private consumption side? I thought that the declining share was a very clear indicator that perhaps is the quickest, is not the quickest to sort of respond to the economic recovery.
Actually, as we are seeing the share of consumption coming down, we've also seen a very something which stands out is that the capital formation has gone up. We know that the private sector is not investing. State governments are being told to invest more, and they are cutting down on the capex, or rather they're going slow on it. And we suddenly have a case of saying even the central government is just about maintaining their capex. So in this kind of a situation, coming to this number of, I think, 29.6 or so, which we have of GDP, I think does seem a bit exaggerated. And I think that's one of the reasons why we are seeing that the share of consumption coming down, because there's another anomaly in the sense of capital formation going up. Can we look at some of the CMI data which says that the new announcements which on investments are much lower in the third quarter too. So first, second, third quarter put together has actually come down, which means that private sector is not investing their surplus capacity, not getting in infra. Also look at the debt market, fewer issuances. So how is this number of 29.6 going to come about? I think that's going to be a kind of a puzzle, or something which could probably change when we have the provisional numbers being released probably around May. But definitely in terms of consumption, one would have thought that consumption should have gone up because, or rather it's because the CSO says very clearly that they have not taken the COVID impact, because they're saying these numbers would be subject to revisions based on what action the government takes on the new COVID wave. At the same time, there was a pent-up demand which came up in October, then sort of ebbed, and maybe could have revived in this month. So this picture probably fits in well. But when I look at the capital formation thing, there seems to be something amiss out there.
Understood. Aditi, you spoke about the sectoral side and some surprises there, but beyond construction and mining, I think you mentioned some of the services side. Is that as per expectation, particularly what it suggests for second half growth?
Yeah, no other major surprises. See, like I said, the full year GVA number at 8.6% is actually 20 basis points lower than our forecast of 8.8%. And the biggest deviation really did come in these components of industry. I think otherwise there's no major impact. The only thing other that I want to point out is when we compare FY22 to FY20, when we look at how things have moved compared to pre-COVID, there are two sectors, one on the GDP side and one on the GVA side, which are still lagging. This private expenditure that's lagging by around 2%, and the trade, the transport, etc. The contact intensive part of the services sector, which is lagging by more like 8.5%. And that's really the impact of COVID, which we're still seeing even in FY22. The YOY growth numbers are going to be high because we've got the low base, but this is where the scarring is, and that's apparent when we compare FY22 to FY20.
Yeah, we are still below pre-pandemic trend, right, Madan? Even if we've reached those levels. I'm sorry, I didn't see the per capita numbers. I presume there's still some gap there as well.
Yeah, we are just about at the fiscal 20 level. And since we're talking of the sectors, we look at the trade transport sector, I think if you look at the overall value of your GVA, it's lower than that of fiscal 20. I think all the other sectors are higher than fiscal 20, get moderated on account of this base effect of going down and up. And even in case of manufacturing, we see that I think it's 12.5%. If you look at over 20, the number comes down to something like 4.4%. So I think the way we should look at all these numbers is that we have recouped a lot of losses. We should not get ecstatic with the fact that these sectors are really booming. And it's going to be a case of saying that we're going to start on a fresh slate for next year, and maybe anything we do out there, which again, I don't think would be more it will be more in the region of around 7.5%, maximum 8% if things look very, very good for next year. So it's going to be a longer journey before we come to that 5 trillion mark, which we've been talking about for quite some time. It's been kind of a rolling target. But I would say that overall COVID impact has definitely affected us for 2 years. It's 2 years actually gone, and fiscal 20 itself wasn't too exciting. So 3 years of low growth is not a pretty picture for us.
Not a great place to be, absolutely. Just a couple of last questions now heading into the budget. So Aditi, the nominal number will change the math on the fiscal deficit a little bit. If you were expecting some slippage, maybe a few basis points here or there will get adjusted.
But Ira, we are looking at a fiscal deficit which is higher than budgeted anyways for FY22. Revenues, very healthy, both tax, non-tax, no concern over there. Expenditure will not be as high as what the two supplementaries put together have indicated, but we are expecting a big miss or disinvestment. And I think this is something that does lead us to believe that the FY22 fiscal deficit would be between 16.5 and 17 trillion. So even as a percentage of GDP, it's going to be higher than what was budgeted despite the 17.5% nominal GDP growth. The good news is that we do believe LIC will happen next year. And that's actually going to give, a lot more fiscal headroom coming into next year. The direct tax growth next year should also be very high. The formalization in the economy itself, whether or not there is future waves of COVID, should support a healthy growth of direct taxes next year as well. And on the indirect tax side, we have an overhang of all the duty relief which is being given this year. So probably we're going to end up with very low growth on excise and on customs duty. But overall, because of this positivity that we expect from the LIC money or IPO money coming in next year, we think that there is scope for the government to show more fiscal consolidation next year than some of what we are reading in the news reports.
Madan, what's your expectation on the fiscal deficit side this year, and what is the projection likely for next year?
See, for this year, I think we were looking at a number of 7.3 to 7.5%. Now, with this higher base, probably 0.1, 0.2%, it could improve. And this is also based on the assumption that a lot of our disinvestment does go through. And all the expenditures which the government spoke of are invoked. In case we do not really spend that money, the 3 lakh crores which they announced in the supplementary demand, then of course there will be savings to be had. Now, in terms of next year, I think the major challenge for the government, or rather what we'll be looking out for, is that how this particular lockdown, what does that mean for the people? Whether the government will have to spend more on health, will it have to spend on relief, will the subsidies have to go up? I think these are the concerns which the government will have, and they just about have a month to react. I'm quite sure that most of the budgetary numbers have already been fixed, but at a margin, maybe you'll have to see whether you can tinker with certain expenditures, which may be required in case times are going to be difficult in the next 3 months. If everything turns out to be fairly normal, we don't really have any severe lockdowns, which means that things could be a little more normal next year. Then maybe the government could then focus more in terms of more on capital expenditures. So as economists, we always like to say the government should spend more on capex, but the whole thing is where is the money for the government to spend? Even today, we're looking at 5.5 lakh crores. Can I actually push it up to 7 lakh crores? The answer is probably not. You can probably do it by 5%, 10% more, because we don't get those kind of resources also. I mean, your revenue also needs to grow at the same rate. And disinvestment, as usual, will be a tough nut to crack. And I mean, I'm not quite sure if this 1 lakh crores of LIC will really happen. We're running short of time. The market I don't know if the market has the appetite for such a large amount to be raised. And so I think these are the issues which the government will be looking at. So I don't expect anything path-breaking or anything very different to come out from the budget. It's more a case of managing with whatever one has, and hoping that things like disinvestment would have worked out or will work out. Because even this LIC has been a rolling target. So if it doesn't work out this year, we'll again have it coming in next year in the number. So I think ideally we should actually keep disinvestment out of the budget, because it makes it much easier to handle the budget also. But that's the way it is. So, so again, coming back to this thing, I think the GDP numbers will probably give a little bit of elbow room to have higher fiscal deficit in numeric terms, but keeping the ratio still within target because of the base effect. Because when you're talking of a 14% growth over this nominal growth of 17-18%, I think you get that much of room.
Absolutely. I'll actually leave it at that. Aditi, Madan, thank you so much for taking the time to quickly discuss and analyze these numbers for us. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching Bloomberg.
Bye.